Okay, thank you so much, everyone has joined. Just so that we don't keep our speakers and so we respect their time, we would start. The session is being recorded, so those who didn't join the earlier stages will be able to catch up with the recording. So just for the benefit of our speakers and some of the people who are new to the conversation, I'll do a quick introduction about the project and a bit of what's the sort of like setting the stage for what today's conversation is going to be about. So we're gathered today for the focus group discussion on the future of justice and institutions in Rivers State as part of the Rivers 2050 vision. So what's our mission for this project? We continue to share this timeline because this is a timeline of the next 25 years between last year and now and the year 2050. And it has shown us, I mean, we did this last year, and that's shown us that there are quite a number of threats that River States, Nigeria as a whole, Africa as a whole faces, but most especially River States faces things like a population boom, things like the over-reliance on the national grid, which obviously over the past couple of weeks, everyone has been feeling the heat, both figuratively and literally. The fact that we can't continue to be in a hydrocarbon economy, the fact that the rise in sea levels threatens our coastal communities, the fact that technology is going to disrupt jobs and how do we ensure we educate our children better. So all of these threats basically have sort of like form part of what these discussions are about. And we've been looking at it across 15 thematic areas. As of last year, this is part of what we did last year. The project launched in February 2025. And for between February and December last year, we were able to convene over 100 young people to form a task force. We've now consulted over 34 experts across 6 thematic areas. So we've discussed things like sports, what's the future of sports, things around media and entertainment, culture and tourism, and stuff like that. And we've had really wonderful experts, just like we have today, join us for those discussions. Our dream is that by October or latest November, we'd have the Rivers 2050 vision book, which will be a first of its kind on the continent, the first citizen-led vision that we hope would shape the next 25 years for the state, especially as, I mean, in view of today's conversation about the need for strong institutions, much more than strong men. All the conversations there are available on our website, so rivers2050.org, and also on YouTube. So we save everything, document our meetings as well as a task force. So you can find all that information on YouTube. Hashtag Rivers2050 or follow us on YouTube, youtube.com/arts policy shapers. So for just setting the tone for today's conversation, when you think of public institutions, these four, would I say, buildings sort of come to mind for us in River State. The House of Assembly complex, which sadly was, I mean, some people say it was burned, some people say there was a fire accident, depending on what side of the of the divide you are, but currently being rebuilt. The River State Judiciary, which a couple of years ago for a long time was shut down, the civil service complex, which I mean, if you look at Point Block now, that building is almost 50 years old, was built in the 70s. And I think the building itself looks like the state of our the state of our civil service. There's so much need for reform. And as a follow-up to this conversation, we'll be having a key informant interview in a couple of weeks with the new permanent secretary for the civil service. She used to be the NBA, the chairman, the chairperson for the NBA in Port Harcourt. And yeah, she has so many ideas, reform ideas, and we hope that we can also engage her to discuss that. But yeah, I mean, that's one form of our public institution. And of course, we didn't have the government house where for a number of years we've had strong men, whether or not you, but depending on whoever you see support, but in quote, strong men, not as much strong institutions, people who've been able to sort of in many ways affect the other 3 institutions that are supposed to be working as checks and balance for each other. And this quote by former US President Barack Obama that says Africa needs strong men. Africa doesn't need strong men, needs strong institutions. I think is quite peculiar to us as a state. We've had a state with so many strong men in various shapes and sizes, and it's obvious that hasn't led us to the kind of development that we want to see. And we hope that the speakers today can sort of like reflect on what it will mean for us to have an institution that can check our excesses as citizens, as leaders, and ensure that much more than anything, the state itself sort of is upheld much more than any individual interest. So I'll just introduce our guest now, and then I'll pass on to our moderator to take us forward. I'm not sure if he's here yet, but he's going to join us shortly. We have Mr. Timothy Clement Esquire, who's currently serving as the national chairman of the Nigerian Bar Association Young Lawyers Forum. He's most people know him. He's a Rivers person. So first of all, that's something that makes us really, really proud that he's serving at the national level as someone from Rivers State. And I hope that he has so much to share from a young lawyer's perspective. He's obviously working as an associate at Ronim and Associates with a broad-based practice covering maritime law, tax law, ADR, consumer and data protection, to mention a few. He's a member of also other several professional organizations, such as the International Bar Association, the African Bar Association, the MBA section on business law, Environmental Lawyers of Nigeria, to mention a few. So thank you so much, Mr. Clement, for joining us. We also have Mrs. Chikasi Okonkwo Nwokemodo. Forgive me for if I destroy the name. Please pronounce the correct one when you come on. She's a lawyer of over a decade's experience, calls the Nigeria Bar the intersection of law, enterprise, and innovation. She's a notary public of the Supreme Court and also a chartered mediator as well. Beyond the legal practice, which I really find interesting, she's also a budding tech entrepreneur building digital tools to simplify things like notarization, dispute resolution, asset protection, to mention a few. She basically balances tech and law really well, and I think that that's a very interesting field that she works in, considering that in the future technology is going to rule quite a bit of what we do as a human race. She's not defined by one title. She's a coherence of several hats, and you also see that from the conversation as she brings these several perspectives to the room. Thank you so much for joining us. We also have Mr. Roosevelt Mbamara Esquire as well in the house, principal counsel at Field of Roses Legal Practice, was admitted as a solicitor and advocate of the Supreme Court of Nigeria in 2010, holds a Master of Law at University of Lagos, also is an alumnus of the School of Politics, Policy, and Governance, and also Associate Fellowship at the Association of Enterprise Risk Management Professionals. I think one thing that's really interesting about Mr. Roosevelt is that he served on the judicial panel, and I think probably one of the youngest people to serve on that on the judicial panel, especially the ones constituted across the country on NSAS. Most of us as young people were part of NSAS, and we know how really close to our heart that movement was. So yeah, he was part of that panel. Also was appointed by the Imo State government as well to be part of the Commission of Inquiry on Lands and Related Matters as well. So thank you so much for for the amazing work you've been doing, and we hope to hear some of the insights you bring. And finally, of course, this is one of our own, also a member of the task force, Obakam Tom George, who is a strategist, builder, and social entrepreneur. She's also a lawyer, but she doesn't get to talk about that a lot, but she's also been called to bar as well. She's the founder of Fourth Nexus, a strategy consulting collective that works with businesses at the critical gap of vision and execution. She's co-founded so many things. She's co-founded an AI-powered academic writing platform. She's also co-founded as well, I think, a non-profit called Colored Drops as well that does work around environmental action and and arts and stuff like that. So just really excited about that as well, the things you bring when it comes to talking about communities, because I think most times we think about laws and think about courts alone, but I think how can we get community-based justice as well? That's one of the things that we want to do over the next 2 decades. So thank you so much. These are just like summary versions of their profile because of our time. I'm now going to hand over to our moderator and our rapporteur for today, Bira Zobai, who is our focus group chair, and Chiwendum Blossom. Over to you guys.
All right, thank you so much, Ibe. Thank you for the introduction. And then thank you to our very esteemed guests. We are happy to have you and happy to share from your experiences and your proficiencies, basically. We are just going to start right about now. I think Mr. Timothy is not on the call yet, but we'll continue the conversation. Hopefully, he joins us during the conversation. All right. Once again, welcome to our speakers and our special guest. All right, so I'm going to ask a question to all the guests, but I'll be starting from Obakam Tom Judge. As you would or you should already know, Nigeria is ranked about 23rd out of 34 countries in sub-Saharan Africa in the 2024 World Justice Project Index, behind countries like Rwanda, Namibia, amongst others. Very interesting as well is the fact that in the rule of law index, Nigeria ranks 120th out of 142 countries worldwide. All right. So, judging from these statistics, how do you reflect on this ranking? And then, quite personally for Rivers State is, how would you say Rivers State is faring in terms of the quality of our justice and governance institutions? We'll have Obakam first, and then we flow to the other speakers.
Obakam, you're muted. We can't.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah. We can hear you now.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I was in Vera's shoes a few months back, and then I'm here today. But y'all, thank you for having me. Iben, thank you for the good work that you do with Policy Shapers and Rivers 2050 Vision. So yes, I'm a lawyer. I'm not practicing law, but I've worked across corporates. And then I do a bit of law where I currently work. So it's interesting to bring that dynamic to this conversation. So your question about Rivers State's ranking, it's not a lie, right? So we don't know where these figures were pulled from or where this data entered into for us to pull these figures. But if I were to do a net promoter score, so basically if you've seen that survey that you have to rank something between 1 to 10 or 1 to 100, that's what a net promoter score is. If I were to just put a random net promoter score here, I don't think I need a prophet to tell me what the results would be if we rank Rivers State judicial system, right? So in a net promoter score, basically, 8 to 10 are people who are very positive about an action. You know, anything below 7, they are detractors, right? And 7 to 8 are passive people that have like this very passive thing about like whatever that data is, right? So if we were to bring that sort of data, I don't need the prophet to tell me what that result would be, right? So I don't know that this data is a very far cry from what people would normally say, right? I would say, however, that Rivers State has inherited a lot of like national issues. You know, on a national level, our judicial system is nothing to write home about, laden with so many inconsistencies, procedural issues, etc. And I'll allow the lawyers who are in active practice to talk about this. But again, I'm talking from, you know, someone who was called to the bar and who works in corporate right now, right? So yes, we have a lot of those inconsistencies, and Rivers State has inherited a lot of these issues. And again, this is something that is very obvious to the blind as we are currently in Nigeria. I would say that I'm going to bring my experience as an operator, you know, to this conversation, right? Because first of all, the question is, how are we going to say, how is Rivers State faring in terms of quality? I'm going to use the operational word quality, and I'll say not so good. Again, back to the NPS survey that we're doing, I'm going to say not so good. I don't think we're ranking very well, you know, in terms of quality, right? But just bringing my experience as an operator. As an operator, I deal a lot with systems. I deal a lot with structures and standard operating procedures, that type of thing. And in a system, in a structure, what happens is if you have a very oil-oiled machine, right? Anything that sort of like takes away from that system, you know, creates a disruption. So if I create a standard operating procedure, for instance, right? If somebody else who is not part of that system takes that material, that documentation, and work with it, they are supposed to get the same result, you know, as somebody who is normally in that system would get. I don't know if you get what I'm saying, right? I don't know that that's the issue right now, or that would be the result in Rivers State, because of the so many inconsistencies that currently exist. And this clog in the wheel has a lot of times led to the issues that we are seeing. The plug in the wheel being like, the cost of legal services, the distrust in the legal system, a lot of procedural issues, lack of legal aid, or maybe not just lack, but the access and the knowledge of the access of legal aid. Because even when there's legal aid, people don't even know. And when they know, it's like when they get there, these people are they're already so like, so overwhelmed with the work that they have to do that the justice delayed now becomes justice denied. And if justice delayed is justice denied, that is quality. You've lost the quality. You probably lost years of your life that you cannot get back. You've probably lost money that you cannot get back. You just lost so many things. You probably lost your reputation that you cannot possibly get back, because before the truth is done making a story, a lie has worn shoes and traveled continents. So in a case where maybe somebody has been, say, let's say somebody has been, there's like a libel thing or a defamation case against somebody that is not true. Before the truth comes to the fore, what happens is that the lie has worn its shoes and has traveled very fast. So now, would you now say that the quality of justice would you say there is quality in the justice system? If I'm supposed to get like justice this year and I'm getting it in 10 years because of procedural issues, because of delay, because of strike, because of, a big man who has money and has, sort of like messed up with the process, so these are lots of issues. So I think that this ranks very well. I don't think that we're faring well. Not like I know we're not faring very, very well. And a lot of times I would trace it back to an inheritance problem, an inheritance of these systems from the national level. Thank you, Vera.
All right, thank you so much. Very, very well detailed. So I'm going to move this to Roosevelt now. I know that you've not done so much with River State, but I also know that we've been in the news and we are always in the news, right? And you should know one or two based on your practice and your experience. So I want to move this question to you and just a bit of what you can say about it. Over to Roosevelt.
Well, thank you, Bira. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm sorry I cannot open my video because of certain reasons. Forgive me.
Oh, okay.
I like the background you gave that I really haven't done much, in River State, but I have friends that operate in River State and I follow River State news because of how important the state is in Nigeria, right? So I'll start by, giving this introductory remark, by way of saying that the mandate of the executive, okay, is to design and implement policies. That of the legislature is to make laws and provide oversight, okay? And the judiciary's mandate is that of review, review of the activities of the other arms of government and then the larger society. So depending on one's perspective, some people argue that the judiciary's mandate is the most consequential in this context due to its diluting effect on the polity. So, however, much will also depend on the courage and independence of the personnel of the judiciary, in achieving rule of law, in achieving a society governed by law. So how effectively the judiciary exercises its mandate, usually determines the stability of the society. So having said that, having given this background, in terms of why Nigeria has scored poorly, in both indexes, under reference, the reasons are not far-fetched. And every Nigerian who follows the news, will easily, know why River State has been greatly contributory to the poor ratings of Nigeria on those indexes. So if you, let me even use a very simple approach, if you wanted to assess how much River State has contributed to Nigeria's poor ratings, in those indexes, by the powers, okay, by the powers independently exercisable, okay, by the arms of government in the River State. So it's easy to conclude that, governance and the rule of law are nearly non-existent in the state. I say this emphatically because the perception that almost the entire governance structure of River State, including the executive, legislature, judiciary, local government system, and the state bureaucracy, the notion that they are answerable, all these structures are answerable or forced to answer or respond to special interests, okay? in pursuit of governance, whether in terms of policy implementation, in terms of appointments to offices and the state bureaucracy, right? In terms of elections to local councils or budget presentation and oversight by the state executive and the legislature. It gives you an insight, right, into how much Rivers State has contributed to Nigeria's current poor ratings on those indexes. But that said, in general terms, of course, we know the usual suspects: general corruption, godfatherism, weak institutions, poor access to justice, weak judicial system, okay? Inadequate legal framework. We have very outdated laws. I mean, a living example is the recently passed electoral laws that refuse to codify real-time transmission. So these are things that are inimical to transparency in our system. So the reasons are not far-fetched. Violation of human rights, of course, but there's police brutality. Police brutality exists in our communities, including Rivers communities. The NSAS had no effect. Even the report that we wrote as a member of the panel, the report that we wrote hasn't been implemented. I'm sure it's the same case across states, including Rivers State. So, individual, ethnic, political interference in judicial appointments and all of that. But we'll get to that. So I wanted to give some form of practical example to as a follow-up to what Obakam said. Okay, so we cannot belabor why Rivers State, is contributory to these poor ratings, the poor ratings of Nigeria on those indexes. The reasons are out there for everybody to see. Thank you very much.
Okay, very well said. Thank you so much, Roosevelt. You gave like a very broader perspective to it. So finally on this, let's hear from Chikasi. I believe that her over a decade experience would give us some special insight on this as well.
Okay, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I also want to commend the organizers of this, because it's very important that we have these discussions, especially as young people, young professionals. So about the WJPI, I would like to say that the ranking of Nigeria as 120th it's concerning, but it's not surprising, right? Because just like Roosevelt said, every Nigerian citizen who follows the news knows for sure that there's a flagrant abuse of the rule of law in this country. The World Justice Project Index actually relies on some criteria to arrive at the ratings that they have. Adherence to the rule of law tops that chart. There's an issue of how corrupt the government is. There's an issue of infringement of fundamental rights of citizens. So it doesn't even really look at what the government experiences, but what the ordinary citizen experiences as to the rule of law. So for Nigeria, it's an autopsy, if I must say. It's just clear cut that this is what happens in the country. So they can't do otherwise. They can't be otherwise. Although I still have my reservations about how some of these ratings are done. But like I said, for us who are involved, for us that are lawyers, especially practicing lawyers, we are citizens, yes, but when it comes to witnessing firsthand how the rule of law is abused, we get to see that. Because you'd be in court for a matter, you'd see that a court has given a judgment or has given an order, and nobody follows it, especially the agencies, the government agencies, and nobody does anything about it. So I really agree with that. As at 2015, we were somewhere around 90th, if I'm not mistaken. And after 2015, we just entered the hundreds, right? And if we keep at it this way, if our leaders keep at it this way, will definitely flow down that list, will go way down more. See, when he claimed the giant of Africa, right? I think at this point we really need to look for something else, okay? Because being giant of Africa, being nicknamed giant of Africa means that we should be number one on the list as far as Africa is concerned, right? But this is where we are. And then when you really look at the list and see the countries that like are way above us there, you don't wonder what exactly are we even doing when there's something where ECOWAS and they say, oh, Nigeria, we're talking about Nigeria as an important country or an important voice when it comes to continental affairs. In fact, it's crazy, honestly. I tend to get emotional actually with Nigeria because I do love Nigeria so much, right? But our leaders need to do better. Unfortunately, is when things like rise to the occasion and do what needs to be done. This was seen across the or during the time when Nigeria was on the grey list for the anti-money laundering issue and all of that. That was what actually happened that made the EFCC, the NFIU, everybody, they were on guard because they needed to move Nigeria out of the grey list, right? So if this is going to make them rise to do what needs to be done, I mean, so be it. So for Rivers State, I really think that Rivers State would have, in a way, helped that ranking. You know, I'd say that because when it comes to justice delivery, yes, well, Rivers State, unfortunately, is a highly politicized state. Everything in Rivers State is all about politics. It's highly political. And like Roosevelt pointed out, it's a very important state in this country. But I'd like to say that when it comes to justice delivery, as someone who practices here, I can say for sure that they aren't doing bad. Look at the technological advancement, innovations, the filings. I've been opportune to practice in Lagos, Calabar, Oka, right? And now here. And I can tell you that even when the e-filing thing was happening in Lagos, it wasn't really, it was still struggling at the time. For a period of time, I was there. But we are advancing in that regard. So if really we're looking at ordinary citizens and access in a way, maybe as it pertains to one-on-one dealings, yeah, fine. But when it comes to government institutions, I'm sorry to say that Nigeria just disappoints. Our leaders just disappoint. And forgive me, but politicians just disappoint. Maybe going further, I would probably have a thing or two to say on why all of this is so much hinged on politics and politicians and why we may not make any headway. Okay, so yeah, that's it for me.
All right, thank you so much, Chikasi, for this insight. But I'll come right back to you right now because as I know we've spoken about what I want to bring to you in a bit, we've dived into it. But just as a follow up to what you've already started here. So let me just ask you, in your legal practice, in all the years you've practiced and all the period you spent in Rivers State here, where do you see the justice system failing ordinary citizens most frequently? Is it in delays? Is it in cost? Is it in corruption, documentation systems, enforcement of judgments, amongst a host of others? Like I said, I know you've dived into it a little, but just give us like a broader perspective on this particular point.
Okay. So delay just and these other ones, enforcement of judgment as the branches. Every other defect stems from delay. I can tell you for sure because I've experienced this firsthand. So I'm a lawyer, I've experienced this. So I wonder what the feelings of an ordinary person or an ordinary citizen would be. Okay, if in the justice system, we do not have delays, there would be no need for a court official to expect his palm to be greased just for a litigant to get a favorable date or for a litigant to get a favorable court or something like that. If not for delay, there wouldn't be an issue of, oh, a document is missing from a file. Like we hear that, in practice. If not for delay, there wouldn't be a case of a litigant not enjoying the fruit of the judgment that he gets in his favor. And I'm going to use a case of what's that comes to mind now? Okay, maybe where money has been mistakenly paid into a wrong account, right? And someone needs to get this money. And you know how most people are. Once they see that money, they go to spend it. I mean, we know the case of this guy that chose to serve his time in jail, hoping that he would not return hundreds of millions of naira to the bank, right? So when people go to file a matter in court and trying to recover this money or to post no debit on the account or basically freeze the account, you realize that delay is the reason that the person who is a beneficiary of this money spends it thinking that nothing is going to happen. I can tell you because I've experienced this firsthand. I needed to recover such money, get a court order to recover a client's money. And then I filed this matter. It wasn't assigned. Way past 3 weeks, the matter wasn't assigned to a court. I had to file the second time using a different mode of commencement. That was still being delayed. I had to file the third time. And eventually we got that money, but it wasn't even through the court. So you realize that even in the course of this, I had to try to, get my client satisfied because it was a lot of money and, a lot was at stake. So delay is the key thing. What I would also mention as to enforcement of judgments is the aspect where for the ordinary citizen, they are usually bullied, especially by agencies, government institutions. Imagine that someone has filed a matter, a fundamental rights action in court against the police and maybe some other respondents, and monetary judgment was awarded. How do you go to the police to really recover that? When we do the calculations of the monies the police need to pay as judgment debts, right? It's a lot. So if someone is disappointed in that regard, how else would the person go on to do this? So this is just the other angle, but I'm saying categorically that everything is hinged on delay. If not for delay, everything will move on smoothly. More so, it is important that we have people in the system who are out for service delivery. You can't put people who really don't care about anybody, don't care about having the job done. And when we talk about system, it's not like there's something they're running on autopilot. The people who are involved make the system work. So you can't put in people who are not concerned about what goes on and expect to have positive results. So if we're able to get this all figured out, get it all sorted out, definitely it's going to kind of cure those defects. We won't see that much delay that we get. And with that, everyone, especially the ordinary citizens, would be happy. You see how they say the judiciary is the last hope of the ordinary man. Even now, many Nigerians do not agree with that. But if we're able to put the right system in place, the right things in place, do what we need to do without fear of failure, definitely it's going to improve the justice delivery, especially in Rivers State. Saying how is the focus.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Chikasi. That was very, very detailed. All right. So I understand that we have Timothy on the call. You're welcome, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so welcome. We've been talking about the state of the judiciary in Rivers State and the quality as well, right? But to take it a bit further, I would want to ask you directly, from your perspective and from the so much work that you've done with the Young Lawyers Forum nationwide, what structural weaknesses in Rivers State's justice system concerns you the most? And and by saying that, I'm talking about the next 25 years. And how can these weaknesses be addressed? So I'll just want you to marry your answers together.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Bira, if I'm correct.
Yeah, you're correct. Welcome once again.
Thank you. I'm so sorry I came in late. That's because I've been with the president of the Nigerian Bar Association in Bayelsa. We had a local content program. So I just had to sneak out of the program to be able to attend to this session.
Thank you so much.
Of course, the issue of structural weaknesses in the judicial system of Nigeria, using Rivers State as a case study, can never be overemphasized. It's something that every justice sector participants have been trying, have been passionate about, including judges, lawyers, civil and liberty organizations, and well-meaning Nigerians. I could say partly politicians, because for the politicians, they are neither here nor there. If the system favors them, they shut their mouth. If it doesn't favor them, they open their mouth. So, of course, one of the most important weaknesses that has been identified over the years is the issue of the fact that our judicial system is not independent. They are not independent of the executive arm. That's because, of course, we have always been crying of judicial independence in terms of autonomy, financial autonomy, and then in terms of how these judges are being appointed, right? Of course. So that is one of the weaknesses. That's because in some of the states, you now realize that for a judge to be paid, their money must come from the executive arm. I can hardly doubt if this issue has been fully addressed, in the various states of the federation. Of course, another one is congestion of the court. The court is so congested with few judges. Sometimes, as lawyers, as litigants, you go to courts and you spend a matter that you're supposed to spend, let's say, 2-3 hours. Sometimes you spend the whole day. We can't talk about the burden on the Supreme Court justices. We can't talk about the burden on the Court of Appeal justices. The High Court is something else. So it's a deliberate, is an important issue, or is an important weakness, in the aspect of justice delivery. Of course, we can also mention the dilapidated nature of the courts. Sometimes you go to, I can't even talk about customary court or magistrate's court. I mean, a high court in some states. Of course, Rivers State, for our state, is a little bit better. It's better. I won't say it's better. I mean, it's good, right? Yeah, because for some of these local governments, sometimes you go to some of the high courts stationed in some of these local governments, and you begin to wonder, how can you get justice when even the judge itself is uncomfortable, is angry because of the nature or the environment of his job? So it's quite a serious issue. What are the solutions? Financial autonomy, from the magistrate down to the customary, the judge or our judges or the judiciary should not have anything doing with the executive at all. For instance, you're seeing where the executive arm comes and then build courts, for judges, build houses for judges. In fact, I think there's a situation where they furnish the house, do everything, buy car for these judges, and you expect a judge to be independent when that person comes to ask a question in court or to seek for justice in court. I think we are all humans, and I think that won't be possible. So, but if judges are able to acquire these things within their budget system or budgetary system, devoid of any, support from the executive, I think that would be a progress on that part. And then, of course, we are talking about the congestion of the court. So judges, you now realize that the truth be told, judges are few. The number of judges are few. And so we need to appoint more judges. And then some of these matters, particularly those minor civil matters that are those minor civil matters, all we need to do is to look at ADR. ADR should always be at the forefront of any legal transaction or conversation, so that the court at itself will deal on serious matters, that are seriously disputed. And I think that is the way to go. Thank you.
All right, absolutely. I want to say I totally agree with you. I think this financial independence is very, very, very necessary, because that's where the complacency starts building and the entire influence and all. Right. Thank you so much for such perspective. So I would want to come back to Roosevelt now. Simply put, I would ask, if you are advising Rivers State as a client, what institutional reforms would you prioritize to ensure the rule of law and administrative accountability by 2050? That's like the next 25 years.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. So in terms of advising Rivers State as my client, okay, my colleagues, Chikasi and Timothy, they've touched on some of the issues in the judiciary, okay? Chikasi gave a practice perspective, right? And then Timothy touched on the challenges, the general challenges. But I'd like to amplify some of the things that they said, particularly with regards to appointment of judges. For me, it's a matter that I am passionate about. I am emotional whenever it comes up, okay? The issue of appointments of judges in Nigeria and in Rivers State particularly must be revisited, okay? And in practical terms, my suggestion would be for a written test to be mandatorily written, okay? To be mandatorily executed for candidates who want to become judges. There should be a written test. There should be certain thresholds that if you don't attain, you cannot, be appointed as a judge. And even candidates who succeed at these tests must be subjected to oral interviews, okay? The essence of this is to ensure, to guarantee that these candidates, are well suited to be appointed as judicial officers. My colleague, Timothy, also talked about congestion of our courts, and I agree with him. There are too many case files with very few judges, okay? So in terms of the solution, he talked about ADR. Of course, ADR is a very effective, mechanism to check the court congestion. But I will also, I don't know whether Rivers State has small claims court. Well, I don't practice in Rivers, but if Rivers State does not have small claims court, there's a phenomenon now. It's called small claims court. So you set certain thresholds of claims that, if those claims are not beyond, you just define them by law, by legislation. You define cases that will go to small claims court. So Rivers State should look at, establishing small claims courts in order to broaden access to justice. in the state. Okay. So in terms of a general administration of the state, maybe for the bureaucracy, for the River State bureaucracy, the civil service, I would suggest a holistic restructuring of River State civil service to particularly to make it digitally compliant. Okay. So digital compliance is very critical in River State civil service. The advantages attached to it cannot be overemphasized. Of course, it will reduce the bureaucratic bottlenecks. It will make for transparency in the system. And also, I have to also suggest that politicians should not be allowed to drive the process of restructuring of the civil service in River State. Let it be given to technocrats. And also, I would suggest that non-admin officers, okay, shouldn't be elevated to the post of permanent secretaries. So I'm just giving very practical recommendations now for the sake of what we are trying to achieve. Okay. So what else? What else? I think my colleagues have touched on the other issues I wanted to touch on. And also transparency and accountability in financial management. It cannot be overemphasized. The current government's efforts, I know that same is an accountant, okay? The current governor of River State is an accountant, and I think he has, made efforts in that direction, towards the direction of transparency in River State finances. But I think there should be an improvement. The IGR, publication of the IGR, blah, 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 So priority areas in that regard, mandatory disclosure of audited financial statements, and several other things that I mentioned, okay? So I'm going to just share a written brief. I'm going to share a written brief that will cover my thoughts on this issue. But these are the few, these are the few ones that I could, highlight right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Roosevelt. We'll be looking forward to the written brief as well. All right, so for better perspective, Timothy and Roosevelt, both of them have mentioned ADR. So just to bring for the knowledge of some persons that are not lawyers and are not privy to that. So ADR is alternative dispute resolution. All right, so we'll be going to Obakam now. And we'll want to take it more granular, take it to the community level. So basically, what does justice look like at the community level? I know you've done a bit of work with your non-for-profits towards like the community level, and I also know that you're a full-fledged River State person. And so let's just hear from your perspective. What does justice look like at the community level in River State? Outside the formal courtrooms, and then again, what innovations are needed to ensure that justice is served in traditional setting. I know that everybody has, sort of touched a bit of this and that, but again, a broader perspective. Hi, Obakam, are you still on the call? Okay, I think she's having a bit of network issues. All right, so let me take this conversation further to Chikasi. So let me hear from you. How can we truly ensure that no one is above the law in River State, irrespective of their social and political position, which is one of the... Okay, I think Obakam is back. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me in real time?
Yes, I can. Yes. So do you need me to rephrase the question?
Yeah, I got the question.
Okay, all right. So let's hear you. Over to you.
All right, thank you. I'm going to make it fast because my network is a bit choppy. So outside of formal courts, justice in River State currently, as I know it, I see it being served through like very traditional, informal, and community-based systems, right? My grandparents, for instance, and this is just bringing it home. My grandfather was a chief in Mbamara community. So that's my maternal grandfather, right? So I saw a lot of. Please, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yeah. Yes.
Thank you. So I saw a lot of, disputes solved by him and so many other traditional rulers who were his friends, right? From land boundary issues to like just family conflicts, a lot of marriage issues in the community. This is my maternal grandparents now. So death disputes, right? Assault here, chieftaincy matters there. So there's a lot of like traditional ways that justice is being served currently through their rulers and their chiefs. Another is youth and community associations. I have aunties who belong to some of these associations. They maybe meet weekly, meet monthly, and it doesn't even matter if they are not currently residents in Rivers State. I have an auntie in Lagos that still attends her community meetings in Lagos State, right? And so all these different, I would say, focus groups are really geared towards justice, because a lot of times disputes are solved very informally, through these methods. You don't necessarily have to go to court to get justice when you have this sort of arrangement. Another would be through religious institutions. Religious institutions are very much like community-based. Non-governmental organizations are very much community-based. So you have these as well that solve a lot of issues. For instance, like marriage disputes. I would, however, say that when a marriage dispute has now like descended into, say, a legal issue, you don't necessarily have to like just sit on that community level, because there's like domestic violence. That's now a legal issue. I know that you can still get recourse for, in that community setting. However, this has now transcended to being a legal issue, right? So these are some of the ways that justice has been served on a community level. But in terms of innovation that I think are needed to ensure that justice is still served, number one, I think education will go a very long way. Education will go a very long way. We're now getting to the era where, people in the villages, like, they read, they write, they understand English, and all of that good stuff. How about take our constitution and break it down into very granular ways that young people in the communities in these villages can understand, that children can begin to understand the law from a very young age, right? This education will go a very long way. If Ebenezer's son at the age of 5 knows his rights, it would go a very, very long way, because you see adults today who don't know their rights, and just moving anywhere, and the police will stop them and they don't know what they're supposed to do in those instances. So at a very young age, education is very important. They don't need to necessarily know all the edge cases in the law. They don't necessarily need to know all the technicalities, just the basic, their fundamental human rights. That sort of training on a local level is very important. Another thing would be like just human rights training. I already mentioned that. I think that covers for it, right? The second thing I would say would be, conflict resolution. A lot of these people and a lot of these traditional rulers, a lot of times, they're still, it's still very influenced by power, by gender bias, by elite capture, right? Who knows who is the older one, who should get justice, and those type of things, right? But if we now have like people who are not serving justice in a very discretional manner, it solves for it. Right. So there should be actual education in terms of conflict resolution, in terms of alternative dispute resolution, right? These skills should be brought down to the community level, right? Again, so that our courts are not burdened with these issues that can be solved on that level. But there should be a lot more structure where we now have a very hybrid approach to the law, right? Another would be another way that I think that another innovation rather that I think would help us would be record keeping system. And a few of my colleagues here have talked about, technology, right? How do you take what we have and how do you put it behind technology in a way that the people in the communities understand? The average person now uses a smartphone, right? What would that look like in terms of record keeping? A simple Google Doc, saving things in the cloud, will go a very long way, again, so that it would do away with the discretionary way that justice has been served, right? And then I would say that finally, in terms of innovation, I would say mobile justice clinics rather, in a way that people can go into small pockets of clinics here and there. The way we have like I guess doctors who just move in, doctors who would move in a small bus or a smaller ambulance and like just go around communities to serve medical age. I think that we should have these mobile justice clinics here and there in the rural areas where people can walk in and get justice for whatever legal action they are looking to take. Thank you, Vera.
All right, thank you so much. Very different perspective, and I'm totally in love with it. But just before you go, Obakam, let me hear you also on this question. How can we truly ensure that no one is above the law in Rivers State, irrespective of their social and political position? Briefly, let's hear you on this.
Right, I think that it really boils down to everything we've been saying, but the opposite of everything we've been saying, right? That law is equally applied regardless of wealth, regardless of your influence, regardless of your office, right? It's not just on paper. It's not like in practice, right? One way I know for sure is we need to, that was the first thing. And then the second thing I would say is that we need to protect journalists, for instance, right? Whistleblowers, journalists have to be protected. People should not have to be, there should be like zero tolerance for retaliation. If a justice has gone to the root cause of something and they're trying to solve, there should be no interference, there should be no retaliation. And having policies in place that protect this sort of people will go a long way to ensuring that, justice serves everyone. Another I would say would be, I would say that consequences should be very visible. Right? If the consequences met out to this one person, it will serve as a deterrent to other people. Right? It will serve as a deterrent to other people. So consequences should be visible to the blind, that if you do this, you're gonna get this. Right? Powerful people are investigated, trials are transparent, and then I think Chikasi talked about enforcement. Conviction should be enforced. Let it not be whatever is good for the goose is good for the gander. And because the law is very precedent heavy, people will rely on precedents that has been done before. And if it's not done right, it's a clog in the wheel in the process, right? Another I say would be digitization of the system to reduce discretion, like I had mentioned before. And let me see, I think finally, I would say that there should be a lot less political financing, because I think that's what our Nigerian political system is. Rivers State, I dare say, is right now a lot less political financing, right? Where you coming into office is not because you're trying to recover an investment in quotes that you have done before then. It's not a return on investment kind of scheme we're doing here, right? So a lot less political financing where there's no corruption is not your survival strategy. Coming into power it ceases to be your survival strategy. So I think with these, a lot more people will get justice. I mean, a lot of people have said several things. So just little things here and there, little things that I wouldn't say little, because these things, if we actually do them, they will move the needle in no small way, right? So these are some of the things that I will say.
Okay, thank you so much once again, Obakam. Very, very brilliant perspective. And so finally, on this particular question, let's hear Chikasi. She was about to share with us before Obakam came back.
Yeah, okay. So my co-panelists have spoken quite well. And just like everyone else has said, the judiciary must be given unperturbed, unfettered, independent autonomy. This is the first step to achieving a near perfect justice system where no one feels like they are above the law. The second thing would be for there to be checks and balances within the arms of government. The Senate or the legislative arm shouldn't have any business with the judiciary. The executive shouldn't have any business with the judiciary. But we can see how they just abuse all of these things. And more so, they throw it in our faces. Unfortunately, Nigerians don't care. We are more of a leave it for God kind of people. It's just the answers that I really saw that people came together and we understand the reasons why. But until we are able to achieve this, we may never get to that point where there aren't people who seem to be above the law. The other thing would be removing politics from the equation. Politics, I said this earlier, politics in Nigeria is such a crazy thing. And I really don't understand it. I think the way people get in there makes them forget everything else that has to do with serving the citizens. Once we have a crop of leaders that are people driven, who understand what leadership means, then we can maybe see people who are conscientious and, oh, I can't do this because people would, it wouldn't really look good. You know, it's repugnant to public perception and all of that, right? So if we're able to achieve that, that would help. But before we get to that point where we can remove politics from this equation, we must make public office unattractive. You can't have the arms of government where people see that their cars get changed every year and they have allowances that runs into millions. I mean, being a senator in this country on its own is a collateral. Like, take it to the bank. So we have to make all of these things unattractive. Until we have achieved this, I'm sorry, we are going nowhere. It's quite a dicey one. We all talked about, we've been talking about appointments of judges. How would a governor of a state appoint someone to be chief judge? And then they go to confirm the person, and you get to an assembly where everyone, or at least 99%, is in the same political party with the governor. And they say, oh, you take a bow, and you go up there. How do we think that judge, chief judge, would do anything against the bidding of his or her appointer? So that is where we found ourselves. When we look at places like maybe the US, where they actually do have such systems, you'd realize that it's more different because they are really particular. They are careful about what perception is put out there to the citizen. Like the council culture is actually crazy. I thought Nigerians had that council culture, but when you go to places like the US, you see that it's really crazy. And that's why once anything breathes as a defect and you're a public officer, the first thing you do is to step down from that office. But we are not there yet as a country. I mean, what does it take? 3,000 naira, or promise to be made a local government chairman, or promise to be made a councillor, or promise of handling what other position. So before we get to the point where we say nobody is above the law, especially in Rivers State, where everything is highly politicized, until we solve all of that, we're going nowhere. And I don't think that the politicians in Rivers State, I don't think they even understand how important Rivers State is in the affairs of Nigeria. Because if they do, they probably will be guided to do things differently, to take a more like a different approach that balances out, right? So until we have all of that sorted out, we remove politics, we grant judiciary their autonomy, right? We may not see people who would be above the law. Because having judges, for instance, or judicial officers who can do things without fear or favor, it's not a walk in the park. Trust me, I've been there. I've had privileged information actually, and you know that it's not easy for them. There are threats issued to people who are sitting over matters. I know for one, a judge where I did my internship, I knew what the judge was telling us, and next thing we knew, the man was dead. And I mean, life has moved on. Someone else has been appointed to replace it. So there are lots of things, lots of factors which I may not even come out to say now in public here, but once we have been able to deal with this, especially politicians, I'll keep saying it. I mean, I see a future in politics here, but I must say that especially politicians, the crop of politicians we have now, this is why it's important to have young people in on discussions like this. So we understand that very soon the baton will be handed over to us, and much is expected. It's expected that as we get educated, it's expected that as we get exposure, we get to see how other countries operate. We're able to bring it back home and put in the same thing in the system, right? So, yeah, we just need to deal with this autonomy, grant the judiciary full autonomy, independence, autonomy, financial and whatever, and then we can be close to, then removing politicians from the equation. Once we are able to do this, it would also help.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chikasi. And thank you, Obakam, for these very brilliant insights on this question. So just moving on, I see we are behind time, but we are almost done. My apologies to everyone on the call as well. So let me take this question to Mr. Timothy, right? How will technology, and in particular AI, digital records, e-courts, transform justice delivery in Rivers State by 2015? I understand that we've spoken quite a lot about things within this boundary, but what's most interesting, and the reason why I'm passing this question to you, is that I want to know, because you're in the system sort of, and I want to know, are we preparing for that yet? Are we preparing for that transition from what you can see in Rivers State? I hope
Yes,
Mr. Timothy
yes,
is
I'm
still on.
here.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much, Bira, and my co-speakers. I think they've actually done extremely well in terms of those questions that have been put before them. Just to say that, of course, technology is a welcome development. In fact, the Nigerian or the Rivers State judicial system cannot be effective. The use of technology or the importance of technology can never be overemphasized. In fact, for you, for the judges to be outstanding, for the system to be effective, for lawyers to practice at the highest standard and then compete with their colleagues, outside the jurisdiction of not just Rivers State, Nigeria, beyond Nigeria. Of course, you must be able to adopt or receive technology with open hands. Sorry. Of course, the use of technology has come to stay. Even in Rivers State, you can attest to the fact that I'm just saying to my colleagues that, of course, some judges they make use of technology. Of course, you now have instances of virtual hearing. When people stay at the comfort of their offices and just get internet services and follow up the link that is put before them, and they hear their matters as easy as possible and as fast as possible. And I think so the virtual hearing helps us to reduce for instance, it is cost effective, it is time effective. You now understand the nature of traffic around. For instance, if you're using the Aba Road or if you're using the Query Road, so getting to court at a particular time. For instance, if the court sits by 9 a.m. and maybe you're coming from let's say Uzoba axis, or you're coming from what they call it, Rumodara axis and all of that, or you're coming out of jurisdiction. Maybe you're coming from Lagos, and by the time, except you come the previous day or you arrive the previous day, of course, you're coming from Aba or Imo State and all of that. So the stress of moving down to the court is something else. And so the virtual hearing has been able to solve those issues. It's, like I said, cost effective, time effective too, and all of that. So, but some of the courts in Rivers State has started adopting virtual hearing. So, of course, it's a great improvement, and I believe that by the time these things are being maintained, laws are being put in place to ensure that virtual hearing is acceptable. Of course, there are protocols and then legislations on that. So if judges, and of course, you agree with me that for some of these judges, for them to be effective in terms of using technology, not just the judges, the judicial officers too, they need to be trained. They need to be trained. So, and I think that it behoves on the judiciary to ensure that their staffs are being trained, in terms of AI and modern technology. And then another aspect is that apart from virtual hearing, e-filing, and all of that, as for instance, if you're a legal assistant to a judge, of course, you need the use of AI and technology to ensure that you carry out research and then carry out certain analytical, procedures for the judge. All of this will assist the judge in deciding hearing matters and then deciding their matters effectively. So for us, for Rivers State, we need to continuously advocate for this. We need to continuously advocate for technology-driven courts and systems, so that cases are handled, quickly. So you must not come to court for your matters to be heard, and all of that. My wish is that by 2050, we can't be talking about whether or not technology should be used. We should see it happen. In fact, by 2050, Rivers State should be all about technology, if I use that word. But that practically we cannot do without technology.
Okay, thank you so much. I think is this still on the call? Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, Obakam has something to say, so let's hear you.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to, just echo his thoughts and, provide a bit of balance, because whilst we need technology, there has to be like governance, technology governance that has to be very strong, so that we don't just, get to have technology and then there's digitized corruption. If you get what I mean, right? One way that I also see technology helping is, I'm going to give an instance of McKinsey. Please, can you hear me in real time?
Yes, definitely.
Great. So I'm going to give an instance of McKinsey. McKinsey is one of like the 3 top consulting firms in the world. In 2023, they started their own AI tool, just like ChatGPT, but this is like specifically for McKinsey. It's called Lily AI. And so what Lily AI did was a lot of proprietary data, a lot of frameworks, a lot of like playbooks, a lot of like client data, hundreds of thousands of these data, hundreds of thousands of this proprietary information. They were able to like synthesize it into like in one place through their AI, right? And if you know anything about consulting, you can pay for like 3,000 man hours, and that's what you're paying for, because this consultants go and do a lot of research and aggregate all these data, right? And so what happened is that a lot of like junior analysts lost their jobs. Right. So I see that happening if we do technology the way we're supposed to do technology. However, what happens is that it now helps people aspire to more within the legal system. It helps people aspire to more, look into like a lot more things that they were originally not looking at. And invariably, what that does is I create a lot more opportunities within the legal system. We'll now start looking deeply into maybe our maritime. We'll start looking into how we can do so much more with our oil, like our oil economy. There's so much more with our, our food. That's what technology would help us do, right? So I just really wanted to bring that balance to the conversation. Also, I think that humans are not unique, so we should be looking at how people are using like technology and AI in other systems, but we should not also be. I think it should not be lost on us that there are still some blind sides, because at the end of the day, if there is no governance, you see people like the poor people, you will see women, you will see people who have a certain structure of ears. It would just mess up the entire system. So we don't want to have a system that is just digitized corruption, but a system that is very holistic, balanced, and still, serves justice in the right way.
All right, thank you so much for this balance. And I must say that it's been a very wholesome conversation so far. And a very big thank you to all our guests who have been on the call. Um, Very wholesome conversation. So we've come to that part of the conversation where we ask our guests on the rivers of their dreams. And this is a question that we ask every single expert that has come on the focus group discussion, and this particular focus group discussion will not be left out as well. So I would want to throw it first to Mr. Roosevelt. So what is the river state of your dreams? What do you envision the state for over the next 25 years?
Thank you very much, moderator. Please, before I proceed, I wanted to make a comment about the question you earlier asked about what should be done for nobody to be above the law, right? I liked the perspective that my colleague shared, but I wanted to say that I gave a background earlier for that reason, because of that question. I gave a background, defining the mandate of the different arms of government. I talked about the executive, having the mandate of implementation, the design and implementation of policies, the legislature having the mandate of the making of laws and oversight. Then the judiciary's mandate is to review the activities of these arms of government and the larger society. So I said some argue that the judiciary has the most important, its mandate is the most consequential. So there is no question for us to achieve a society governed by law where nobody will be above the law. We must have an independent judiciary. And some, I have one of my mentors, Professor Chidi Odinkalo. He doesn't believe in people saying, no, give judiciary autonomy. He doesn't believe in it. He believes more in courageous judges. So even with the structure of the judiciary currently, if judges are alive to their mandate, if they understand that, okay, my duty is to review, is to dilute the activities of society with courage and, and firmness, then you will have a society where nobody will be above the law. So in terms of the rivers of my dream, well, River State hasn't really done badly, honestly, because River State touts itself as being second to Lagos State in terms of improvement on its justice sector. At least I can vouch for the infrastructure in River State, justice sector. I think the infrastructure is good, everything is good. The primary problem for River State justice sector is the issue of politics. Politics has finished River State, I must say. Everything is politicized in River State, particularly with appointment of judges. So the rivers of my dream is the rivers where, where we won't have career politicians interfering in the affairs of River State. A River State that will be professionally run, okay? Because it appears that, I was reading online the other day when, I'm sorry to say, I don't know what to say and what not to say on this platform, when a particular leader in River State was going across the local government doing rallies. And somebody said on Twitter that does it mean that people in River State don't have any job that they are doing, that they are coming out en masse for this person? So I think the rivers of my dream is a rivers professionally run, without godfatherism, without just a River State that will operate professionally. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Roosevelt. Thank you. And just to put it out there, you can say everything. I'm saying this for the next speakers that are going to talk. Everything is accepted on this platform. All right, so let's hear from Chikasi, please. What is the river state of your dreams, and where do you see us in 2050?
Okay, so 2050, that's actually a long time, 25 years. But before then, we're lawyers, so we can't say everything. I know you want us to say everything, but we would say everything. So 25 years from now, I want to see, I envision an advanced River State. Honestly, I really don't think I can live anywhere else outside Port Harcourt. Honestly, I feel safe. There's been a lot of the marketing that has happened to River State But it's not as bad as they portray it to be. So 25 years from now, I want to see a technologically advanced river state. We're talking about AI. And given the technological advancements we have now, by 2050, we probably should be having neural synchronizations because we've moved from the Internet of Things to the Internet of Bodies. And this is why you can think of something and then the next minute it pops up on your phone. So everything is getting that connected. So by 2050, it's out there. I really do want to see a river state that is really developed across local governments. We're not just talking about development in Obiabo or just like that or Iquaria. Let it go round. River State has the funds to make it happen. River State has the capital to make it. I don't understand what these guys are doing. It feels like everything is there. Everything is there. There's money, there's oil. There are people with the brains around. All you need to do is bring them and get it working. You don't even need to do you should be able to point out that these people can make things happen. You give them the capital and just see to it that they use it. I see a smart city in River State. People do not know. I'm even speaking majorly about technological advancements and innovations. People do not know that as far as tech-savvy youth are concerned in Nigeria, they come more from Lagos, Port Harcourt, Enugu, and until now, given my recent interactions, I'm seeing Akwa Ibom in that space. So I envision a river state that is fully developed economically, infrastructurally, a river state that is politically stable. Politically stable. Once we have stability in that area, many other things will iron out. Imagine, just for the sake of political instability, we missed out on a monorail that would have helped solve a problem. Now, all of that is gone. A governor built a monorail, and just because the other person doesn't agree with this governor, that dream died. Something that would have helped ease life and movement for the people here. So political stability, development across the entire local governments of River State, infrastructurally, economically, and a technologically advanced River State. Something can happen. I see a smart city in Isiokpo, right? I was driving through one day. I just looked at the plan and said, why can't there be a smart city here? Let's bring people together and make it happen. And I really believe that by 2050, would really be proud to have or be part of the project. Yeah. Thank you.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much. Let's hear Mr. Timothy now.
Okay, so I will thank you so much, Vera. I will start by saying that there is a problem with River State. There's a serious problem. And those problem has been able to put up a stigma on every Rivers man and woman, every Rivers child. So from a personal experience, as a national chairman of the NBA-YLF, when I mean the NBA-YLF, I mean for those who are not lawyers, is the Nigerian Bar Association Young Lawyers Forum. Of course, the forum makes up 70% of the demography of the Nigerian Bar Association. So you can imagine the number and then the capacity of the NBA-YLF. This year, the forum will be 20 years. And mind you, the NBA, the Nigerian Bar Association have been able to produce 2 NBA presidents. The 19th president and the 26th president of the Nigerian Bar Association. And it took just until 2024 for a Rivers young man to be made the national chairman of the Nigerian Bar Association. First in the history of Rivers State and first in the history of South-South. Even before I was made the national chairman, the stigma, the impression, rivers is not possible. It can be possible. So that's because before now, it's been the Lagos boys, the Western boys, the Northern boys, scarcely the Eastern boys. When I mean boys and girls. So I'm just using boys in a generic term. So the context, the stigma was so serious that I was like, wow, is it a river state that has been able to produce two presidents of the Nigerian bars, two respectable senior advocates of Nigeria? So it means that, but all glory be to God, and then the Nigerian bar, the NBA president, for sticking and saying, I've been able to find a guy who can be able to do this job, and I believe in its capacity to deliver. So there's already a stigma. As a Rivers man, there's already a stigma on you in terms of opportunity. And I won't blame anybody. I blame our political class, our politicians, our leaders, both traditional and political leaders. They have been able to bring these things upon ourselves. And we just pray that it takes the special grace of God and deliberate effort to be able to, pull ourselves out of this stigma. If you go to Lagos, in fact, my law school was in Kano, and when I went there, it's a river. Like, guy, is this guy with a gun? Like, is this guy with a machete? What's this? So that is the impression they have about the Rivers people. And it takes, like I said, it takes the special grace of God for us to be able to come out of this thing. Of course, I've said it is our political class that has been able to put us here. From 2015 down to even before 2015, it has always been an issue in terms of producing people with foresight, producing leaders that has the interests of Rivers people at heart. Just like some of the speakers have been saying, Rivers State is supposedly the economic hub of Nigeria. So when they talk about economic hub of Nigeria, you're not just talking about oil. In terms of tech, in terms of tourism, in terms of whatever you call it, agriculture, there are lands. And so, but it's a different case. And so the River State of my dream is that in the next 25 years, first, the rule of law will prevail in every sector of the lives of Rivers people. I won't talk about the issue of the effect of political activities in Rivers State, as can never be overemphasized. Humans are not valued, so we need a society that values the rights of humans, that promotes tolerance and also accept diversity. We also need a Rivers of our dream where the leaders are, when I mean leaders, I mean our politicians, our political class would be deliberate, intentional about the development of Rivers State, of Rivers youth, in terms of education, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of our health system, and all of that. So that's my Rivers of my dream in the next 25 years. I will pray, inshallah, that all of these things will come to fruition. Thank you.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, Timothy, for very elaborate thoughts. And we also believe in you. I want to put that put it out there. We also believe in you as well. And we are happy that you're representing us and making us proud out there. So to wrap
Thank you,
it
sir.
up, all right, sir. To wrap it up, let's have Obakam share the rivers of our dreams.
Okay, thank you so much, Bera. This has been an interesting conversation. And what a way to wrap up. Please, can you hear me? All right. All right. So yes, I think everyone has pretty much echoed my thoughts. Okay. I think everyone has pretty much echoed my thoughts, but just to add to that, first of all, because we talked about justice today, I would say that the rivers of my dream is one that is democratically strong. From our cradle days, we know that democracy is government of the people, by the people, for the people. You know, government is like the strongest institution that exists in the land, right? The highest employer of labor, everything flows from the government. One policy can mess up everything. So we want to see a government that is for the people, brought in by the people, for the people and by the people. That's one thing that I want to see, one way I want to see River State grow by 2050. Another is like a fairer state, a more united state, a state that is greener, a state that is smarter. You know, we've said so much about, River State being a smart city. I want to also see a River State, that sort of like favors otherness. Some days back, someone posted on Twitter that the life expectancy in Nigeria is very low. And because this person has been in Europe for a while, they see a lot of older people going to the grocery store themselves, driving themselves, going to the hospitals themselves. These are people in their 80s, in their 90s in Europe. And someone was like, it's not because Nigeria does not have old people, but the society we live in don't favor older people. The roads that we live in, our transportation network, it doesn't favor older people or elderly people. Our older people are in the villages, right? So I want River State by 2050 to grow into a state where there is otherness, where the specially abled people, because of the smart city that we've come to develop, the specially abled people are able to thrive regardless. That a blind boy, a blind woman can have a regular job. That someone who is, who is like, they have hearing impediments, can even work in government regardless, because there are people that actually exist in our society that these people would cater to, their lived experience will cater to, right? So I want to see a state that has like more otherness. I also want to see a very much post-oil economy, a more diversified economy. And I earlier talked about maritime, our technology system being strong, our renewable energy system being very strong, our agricultural sector, right? People talk about Equerry Gary, people talk about Port Harcourt oil. Like there's some fruits that I see in Port Harcourt I don't see in Lagos, right? I want to see us, be able to like expand our agriculture, I also want to see tourism in terms of like our ecology, in terms of our food, in terms of our talents. I want to see people come into River State and just be interested in our culture, in the way that we think, in the way that we do things. And River State being that that category defining states that other states would look up to. Right. I also want to see very world-class education and just human capital development in the states, stronger institutions where we can compete globally. I think someone dropped that in the comment section as well, right? Where people they're not trying to jackpot every every cent of the, I don't know, but like, people want to come home and enjoy the state, because there are opportunities where you don't have to where it's not just the oil jobs, it's not just the politics that give you the money, right? Such that anything that you do, you can thrive honestly, legally, you can scale. So I mean, these are a few things that these are the few ways that I'm looking to, see River State in 25 years. In 25 years, my parents will be how many years old? I want them to be able to like live in the States without having to come to Canada. I want them to be able to like, enjoy the states that they've grown up and built in. So these are a few things I would say about, the River State of my dreams by 2050.
Brilliant as always. Thank you so much, Obakam. And thank you to all our speakers. We are so happy that you came, and thank you for your time as well. We are glad that we are making this move for our dear state, and hope that in the next 25 years, we'll make it a lot more better. A special shout out to my rapporteur, Chiwendu Blossom, Thank you as well. So over to Ebenezer to close the session. Thank you to everyone for staying with us. Thank you once more.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chiwenduma. Thanks, Bira, for such amazing moderation. Thank you so much to our guests. All of your points have been noted. And just as we mentioned, when we wrote to you, all of those insights you shared, Mr. Roosevelt would also appreciate if you share the brief that you promised us to share. All that information will go into the Rivers 2050 Vision Book. And obviously, you'll be the first to know once the book is ready as well, and you get a copy of it too. So thank you so much for your expertise. So just to give a heads up, next Saturday, we're going to be back here again. We have conversations around environment and sanitation. This is what our schedule looks like for between now and the end of March. There are more conversations coming up, even as we run up to the launch of the Vision Book in October. So stay tuned to us, share this link with more people. Let's have more conversations. Let's have a lot more insights coming. Follow us on social media also, and just stay in touch on YouTube, because all the recorded conversations are also housed there as well. So not taking too much of our time, just say a big thank you to everyone. See you next Saturday for our focus group discussion on environment and sanitation. Wishing you a great rest of your day, rest of your weekend, and a great week ahead. Yeah. All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you.